Alright, so as I promised, I'm going to video the skinning of this little guy as well. And the first thing is always recommended is when you're going to start skinning a bird, if it's thawed out or if it's fully thawed out or partially thawed out, make sure that you give it a good exercise. Well, this bird right now is quite thawed out actually. There is no partial frozen body on it. So what I like to do is making sure all the joints are soft and not dehydrated. And that means that I'm going to gently open and close the wings around this area, and I look for the primaries. So when I open the wing, are the primaries separating or they're just moving in a bunch? You got to pay attention. If it's dehydrated in the freezer, when you move it, all of the primaries, which are growing off the last tip of the wing, they're all going to move back and forth at the same time, like they would move like that. But when I'm slowly spreading it, I can see that they're separating. Not as good as a fresh bird, but it's not that bad. Being in the freezer for 2 years, I don't call this being bad at all or dehydrated at all. Okay, so this side, with a little bit of a massage and a little bit of a exercise, is working out just fine. We might still inject a little bit of water in there, but it's not too bad. Never yank it like that, open it quickly, because it's just like anything else, you can rip it. So massage the muscles, make sure that they're not cold, and then start exercising it a little bit. Yeah, definitely they can handle a couple of injections in there. And another thing on the wings I like to check for is the wing web. This area, especially in flying birds or larger birds like hawks or owls or even eagles, if they've been sitting in the freezer for too long, this webbing and this tendon in the front of the leading edge of the wing that is like elastic, if it's not like this, you have to inject that and bring it into this situation again. So on this bird, being this small and been in the freezer for that long, that wing looked quite good. This wing is not. If you pay attention here, let's see which way I can show it. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit more. I'm afraid if I zoom in too much, I push my subject out of the frame without knowing it. So if you look in here, when I'm trying to work the elasticity of it, it's bunching up right here. It's basically folding. Versus on this side, see, it goes in and out. This is exactly what you want. And if it's like this, folding up or bunching up, basically this vein in here is dry. It's not working with the pressure or with the pull and pull. Yeah, so this needs a little injection. Next would be, let me just zoom out again. All right, next would be the legs. Slowly grab the legs and push them where they are supposed to be. Like here, I grab it by the heel and I push the thigh in and out of the body. Make it quite limb. Okay, of course this part is always easier to just do that. And if you notice here, the toes are quite dried out too, so we'll get to them. Okay, neck is always easy. They're usually not that bad. And when it comes to toes, We can feel how dry they are. Definitely they need some injection. I open them up as much as I can without putting too much pressure on it. And double checking the eyelids. Eyelids are dried out too, but not too bad. Alright, so we'll start with injection. You know, I'm looking at it from the camera viewfinder. I think you would appreciate if I rip the paper out, because it gives a very busy background and it can be quite confusing. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave the tapes here so it gives me some sort of, like with a plain background, I think you can see better, a lot better than just having that many colors and text behind it. So, but hopefully I'm going to keep everything in center so I don't push myself around and push the subject out of the frame. So this is the wing that needs some dehydration. I feel something in here too. Maybe it's a damage, but it's probably just a dried skin. Okay, so for rehydration, I'm using just some water and a few drops of dish soap in there just to make it a little bit more slimy. It helps a little bit more with rehydration. If you don't do it, don't worry about it. Plain water works just fine too. And I use a different, bigger needle syringe to fill up my insulin syringe because it's just quicker. And for injection, I always use insulin syringe because the needle is so small and the hole is going to be so tiny. You can easily go right from the middle of the bottom of the foot and inject into each toe. Change your direction from the same hole. Oops, just came out. You can do it from tip of the toes as well. Just a small amount of water in the toe will rejuvenate it after 5 minutes or a few minutes. These insulin syringes, as much as of a good job they do, they don't really last a long time. As soon as some sort of a debris gets inside, it'll plug up the needle and then you cannot unplug it sometimes. You just have to throw it away and use another one. Okay, I'm going to show you what would it happen if you just inject it from the tip of the toe. It's a little bit easier from the tip of the toe, but I like to make holes at the bottom of the foot if I can. Sometimes I have to go from the tip of the toe as well. These are super sharp. Okay, the toes are injected. Now, this is the good wing that is not dried out. Still at the last tip of the wing, I'm going to put some water in there because it doesn't hurt to make everything super fresh. And this is kind of like a guesswork. I feel where I'm pushing my needle. If the water bubbles up from the middle of the feathers right away, it means that you're not putting your needle in the right place. Just have to pull it out and do it again. But this one, I think it went into the right place anyway. Sometimes you have to try over and over and over because it's a pretty tricky spot here. There's not a lot of meat. There's actually no meat. It's just a pocket of skin and some tendons. So it worked out on this one pretty good. When you inject the right spot, you can feel the skin bubbles up or blister up. You can always push the feathers aside to see if you can find any part of the skin. Yeah, it works really good. And also this flying or wing web, that is usually the hardest part, at least for small birds like this. Let's see if we can do it. It's basically like putting the needle between the layers of a paper. Fail. Fail. If you push too much, it goes out from the other side. Fail. Fail again. Gotta try it from this angle. Actually, I am failing while I'm succeeding. I think I'm pushing some water underneath this skin. On bigger birds, when we do this, it's quite fun because you see the whole skin blisters up. And you can, this is not good yet, so we have to inject some more. Let's try from under the wing this time. I think I injected it partially. It's still not as super stretchy as I like it to be. Here's a piece of skin. That was good. That was good too. You can feel, once you have it injected, you can feel that the web that used to be like, let's say, it's a piece of paper and it would just bend up. You can see that when you pull it, it just stretches. And as soon as you get it into that condition, like this, it's fairly good enough because the water will work its way through and throughout the whole process, because it's still going to be skinned and inverted up to a degree, and we're going to have to remove all the meat and everything. So there's going to be a lot more work to be done on this wing, and then go through the wash cycle and everything. So it can be promising, but there's still a little bit in the corner here that I like to get injected to give it a little bit more stretch. Didn't go right. That was a good one. very gently. I pull on it to see if it has some of it elasticity back. Okay, I'm going to stop right now and then going toward the head. The skin around the face seems to be all right. So yeah, when I press my fingers down on the skin, and if I can slide the skin on the skull, that means that it's not too dry. Although I feel some spots are getting dry. So I can easily, this is much easier. As you can see, I can inject some water under the skin, between the skin and the skull, and let it sit there and work its way in. And I'm going to double check around the beak where we're going to skin out, how dry it is. Let me zoom in here for you. It might be better for you to see it up close. I have the camera stationary above my desk, so I got to keep in mind all the time to keep the subject in center of the frame. Yeah, the skin here seems to be all right, but I think it would benefit if I injected a little bit more. And it's quite simple actually to inject around the beak.